Hey, everybody, welcome to a Taco Tuesday. It's Tuesday, July 26th. And of course, the initial thing was we were going to report as we were going to talk the Bucs. Everybody reports today. Practices actually start tomorrow. And don't forget now, we're still doing the phase in, right? The NFL through the new collective bargaining agreement in 2020, they have a phase in. So, really, basically, today was all the players were reporting there at One Buck Place, the Advent Health Training Facility. And then tomorrow they're going to all start with a little bit of a workout, a little bit, shorts and t-shirts, maybe a special sleepover. They're all going to have like a Barney party or watch a Disney movie tonight. And then tomorrow, and then of course the next phase, they get the shells on and some pads, limited jerseys, and they work into it. But of course, your Buccaneers, as you guys and girls already know, had other plans for today, which again, owning the news cycle since the beginning of 2020 with the signing of Tom Brady and then the signing of Gronk and Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette and bringing the players back and getting the entire crew back after the Super Bowl 55 victory in 2020. And then this season, as Gronk retires, Brady retires for 40 days, but then we bring in Kyle Rudolph, and Kyle Rudolph signs a very team-friendly deal to get that 10-year veteran, that tight end presence there the Bucs now have, Minnesota Viking, former New York Giant. And wasn't it just that agreement that Rudolph has with the Buccaneers that also allowed them to finally bring in, and the thing was, is people were saying this all along since last year when Julio, before he goes to Tennessee, they're like, Julio to the Bucs. It's crazy. And I even said today, I got to be honest with you. I had a cousin, my cousin Chris, got in a car, and I had just literally gotten the pop that moment about Chris Godwin reporting to camp and not being on the physically unable to perform list. So we know he's back from the ACL and he's going to be ready to go, even with the addition of Russell Gage, also a former Falcon. And I get right on Facebook and I'm like, great news. Evans, Gage, Godwin, let's go, LFG. And he hits me back with, what about Julio Jones? And I'll be honest with you. I said, to me, it's a numbers game. We got Julio, we got Darden, we got Tyler Johnson, we've got Gage, we got all these, the Bucs, other positions. And I said, so for me, it's a number. And he hits me back and he goes, no, they're actually signing him. So thank you, Chris, for breaking that for me. Yeah, the Bucs and Julio Jones is signing with the Buccaneers on a 1-year contract for 2022. So basically, looking to just do a show about players all reporting for camp and what do you guys and girls think about that? And now suddenly it turns into, we got Julio Jones in camp, and there's feelings both ways ever since it occurs. And even before, we've done shows and I've had a lot of y'all on both sides of this, not you putting down a hustler like Julio Jones, the Waffle House. Why is his nickname the Waffle House? Because he was always and is always open. But go ahead, and you know what? Let me see if I can bring this cat into the show right now. I see him in the lobby. He's sharing the crud out of it, making sure we got everyone lined up. You'll know him from the Thursday night NFL edition. And again, as I've said before, my mentor, Mr. Johnny the Professor, Johnny Dean. Let me get Johnny in here. Johnny, Bucs. So, so the Bucs do it again. They add another receiver. What was your initial thought? It wasn't even on our radar, was it? You and I just talked yesterday quite extensively. We didn't even see Julio on our radar, but doesn't it just make all the sense in the world? Because that's what this Jason Light and this Buccaneers team seems to do,
Kind of, yeah.
right?
I
Go ahead.
mean, to me, this signing is just like, all right, they want to give him a chance at a Super Bowl. I think that's what this is all about.
Right. Seven. Let me just, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second, my friend, because I'm just, go ahead. And, the thing is, 7-time Pro Bowler. Love the kid. Did you realize a couple of stats, if you will, about, I just shared that on there. A couple of stats about Julio Jones. He was the first true freshman in Crimson Tide history. Of course, he played at the University of Alabama. He came from Alabama. First true freshman in Alabama history to start his first game as a true freshman, and he did it under Nick Saban back in 2008. So the kid's a 5-star athlete coming out of high school. And it was great because I was talking to my father-in-law this afternoon or this evening when I get back to the house here. We're here in the beautiful Smoky Mountains here, just outside of Maggie Valley in North Carolina, the western North Carolina mountains. I've been trying to sneak in every day over to the camp there, Carolina camp, to figure out if it's Darnold, is it Mayfield, is it Darnold? Oh my God, maybe it's Matt Corral and we didn't see it coming. But
It's Mayfield. They've already got his name up there on the stadium and shit.
he's already selling. They've already got him shaking hands with the season ticket holders and stuff.
Yeah.
But Julio, 10 years in the league, 7 Pro Bowls. He signs last year with Tennessee. The kid, everyone's a kid to me these days. He gets the injuries, but I didn't see a player who was doing a money grab. he left the Falcons. Of course, now Matt Ryan this season now is in Indianapolis. So we saw the Falcons and Arthur Smith going through that rebuild program, but he injured himself last year. Then, of course, the Derrick Henry injury in Tennessee. They still almost try to get back and get back where they were in the cusp the year before. Doesn't do it. Kid wore his heart on his sleeve. What does he bring to the Buccaneers in 2022, Mr. Julio Jones?
That's a good question because this is a loaded, stacked wide receiving core we have.
Right?
Um, what does he bring? Experience. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure what else right now. I really don't know because I
Yeah.
don't know what Julio we're going to get.
Yeah, well, we know because he had the injuries last season, but that was the one thing I was saying when I got back to the house here. My father-in-law, he knows football. He doesn't follow it quite as extensively as maybe you and I do, Johnny. But he goes, Julio, that's the kid that was burning us from the Falcons for all those years. And I said, yeah, because with the Falcons, it was Julio and Calvin Ridley. It was like the Twin Towers, and that's kind of the way I always refer to them as the Twin Towers. But now you've got Julio lining up opposite of Mike Evans. You got a healthy Chris Godwin rotating with Russell Gage in the slot. Now, you and I, as we did in our pre-production meeting, we started talking about a Tyler Johnson and a Jalen Darden and a Scotty Miller and some of these other. They're only, I think 7 receivers because there's so many other places on a team that you're trying to make a true
Rashard
championship
Perryman.
run.
Rashard
Rashard
Perryman's done a
Perryman,
good job.
right?
He's like the lead guy in the backup roles. Then you got all right. Well, you got your 5. You got Evans, Godwin, um, Gage, and now Julio. That's 4. Perryman will be the next in that line, and then you take your choice between Grayson or I think Grayson's the last one in the starting lineup though. And then I think the other guys are going to either be on the practice squad or cut.
And like you and I said, it kind of between Jalen Darden and Scotty Miller. Of course, Scotty Miller, not only has he been with the team for 4 years, had the catch in the NFC Championship game back in 2020, but he's got that veteran presence he brings already to receiving core, which with the addition of Julio Jones, with a Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and a Russell Gage, and
I'm
even
not
now
so
with Tyler
sure about
Johnson.
Jaden, man. I really ain't. They've hyped him up for the last 2 years, and I haven't seen it. Nobody. I don't think anybody's seen it. We saw glimmers of hope there, but
Right.
then he just disappeared again.
Well, the Bucs have
Dropping
90.
balls.
They'll have 90 players in camp. I think what you're going to see is from my end, you're going to see in the preseason games. We've always. It's funny because for so many years the Bucs we were looking for trying to find players that can make this roster, trying to be contributors to the team every year for the preseason, and then in the last 3 years. 2020, 2021. It's more like, Ben, who we're going to find that can hang on and be a body, hang on and add to a depth on this team. I think you'll see a heavy rotation, of course, unless Todd Bowles in the Buccaneer squad and Jason Light, they've already got it set in stone. I think you'll see Scotty Miller and Jalen Darden competing head on. And I think that because we know Scotty returns more punts, but Jalen was returning kicks last season. And you wonder if the Bucs are going to make that pick to retain that 7th receiver, or maybe that position to go more as a special teams position, but also adds another receiver in the depth pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just. I don't know, man. It's but I think they want to try out that new kid. I can't remember his damn name, Devin or
The
whatever it
undrafted
is.
freak, yeah, the undrafted. The kid's got speed like crazy, and they got to work him in there too.
I think he
But
might take that return slot in the special teams.
yeah, because I mean, that's a kid that because he's new to the roster, undrafted player that maybe you could slide him to the practice squad. Whereas Jalen Darden, maybe you could slide him to the practice squad. I don't think Scotty Miller, you could in any doubt because you're allowed to have that veteran presence on the practice squad. I don't think Scotty Miller makes it to the practice squad. I think there's too many other
That all
teams out
depends on
there.
Brady, man. Brady seems to love Scotty for some reason. So
He did, but he didn't love him a
that's
whole
going
lot last season.
that's
Scotty
going to
Miller
be.
was almost like the forgotten man in 2021, wasn't he?
Uh,
I mean, he
well,
wasn't
he
getting a
had a
whole
lot.
lot of love.
He was out there. It just he was on the field. He was on the field.
Yeah.
He did get some short passes and stuff. And
Hey,
it was.
Chris,
Go ahead.
No, I'll say Christopher Cole says, "Hey, what's up, Ray? Hey, Christopher, thanks for coming in here. What are your thoughts, Christopher, on the Buccaneers adding Julio Jones to what was already a pretty stacked wide receiver room?" I know, Johnny, from what I'm getting, a lot of, if I'm gauging it on a 100% scale, 70 to 80% of the people are excited. But that also corresponds with the fact that today was the first, the players are actually reporting to camp today. They're checking in. And man, how many times, Johnny Dean, in Buccaneers history as Buccaneer fans, was the first day of camp? The guys are on golf carts. They're moving in the equipment. You got Ezekiel Elliott with the Dallas Cowboys a couple of years back in trying to find his room, and they're doing the camp show there on HBO. But just leave it to the Bucs now to go ahead and sign a receiver, a 10-year veteran like Julio Jones, going on his 11th season, 7-time Pro Bowler, and they bring him in on. That's got to be the biggest news. I'm just guessing here because all I did was watch the NFL Network this morning early, but then I was out hiking all day. The Julio Jones signing with the Buccaneers, by default, has to be the biggest news of the day in the NFL, right?
It
That I've
could.
heard of.
It's not. It's. I don't see it just blowing everything away. You know what? You're burying the lead here, buddy. Chris
Go ahead.
Godwin, Levante David. They're going to start the season, man.
That's what I was excited about. Chris Godwin, and I called this. I called it, 6 months ago. I was very relieved. We saw the hit he took in that Saints game. Chris Godwin did. We saw the knee. The leg didn't go the right way, but it wasn't one of those egregious, terrible two tears or an MC and an ACL. You still have to rehab it, but knowing the kind of the work ethic that a Chris Godwin has, the reason why the Buccaneers get him that extension after franchising him is because they realize what they have in a hustler and a worker like Chris Godwin. So, I mean, I really felt all along. Of course, you still have, at the end of the day, you have to wait till you get it back and it's all out there on the field and you're, running the cones and everything. But I felt all along that kid was going to get back. And Levante, that's big news for the Buccaneers, getting everybody healthy, getting back into camp. No,
Yeah, absolutely healthy. That's huge news. Julio is big news right now because of the name, but I don't. How much has he done in the last? He was on the decline before he left Atlanta. He wasn't getting in the end zone. He
right?
wasn't getting those spectacular catches anymore.
He was
Um,
starting to get a little injured. I know that, and I think
yeah,
I kind of, I'm not going to say that Matt Ryan, who, is 8 years younger than Tom Brady, was already starting to have a bit of a rag arm, but the Falcons have kind of been in a bit of a rebuild now for 2 years, and they were even last year when they draft Kyle Pitts, and we were like, they could bring Kyle Pitts in, but with Matt Ryan, he can't pitch the biscuits to, with no running game and no defensive identity. We felt like the Falcons were in a rebuild. And of course, Julio goes and signs that big contract with Tennessee last season. And the Titans probably were figuring, if we've got Tannehill running the play action and a healthy Henry at running back, Julio is just going to be icing on the cake along with Brown
I
as the
think they're bringing him in as security for injuries and stuff. I don't think they're going to play him very heavy. Hell, it's just
no.
the third offense in 3 years. So you know,
I just, again, like you and I said, excuse me while I pour. This is my dinner tonight. A little got a 6 packet of hazy little things over at Sierra Nevada brewery the other day. But man, I'm
Misador
telling you
here.
what.
I think Misador and me are on the same page here. He says, "Will Bucks have to pay for Julio's Walker? Does that take a roster spot?"
I'll
I'm
tell you,
not. I'm not that crucial on Julio, but I mean he's been a great player for the Falcons. But I think they used up most of what he had.
if you had to take, because he was also still out there, but if the Buccaneers came to you and knowing the kind of offense we run, the veteran, the quarterback, and Tom Brady, that Tom is going to make a read. He's going to value a veteran receiver, but he also values the 50-50 throw, the defensive alignments, throwing against the weakness in the defense, knowing he can make those reads. If the Buccaneers came to you, Johnny Dean, and said, look, we're signing one of the free agent receivers out there. The money's going to be the same. You want Julio Jones or Odell Beckham? Who would you have said?
I don't like Odell Beckham. I like Julio as a
Right?
person. That's better than I like Odell Beckham. So there's your answer there. As far as football playing, I think Odell's still got more in the tank than Julio, but Odell's famous for one big catch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that one-hander behind his
Yeah,
back there. I
and
mean, as much as it defied gravity, and it did, the kid runs some pretty good routes. I just love, and you and I talked about this, I love the thought of the Bucs being, being down or being up by 3, fourth quarter, maybe down by 3. Tom goes out there. And just imagine if you put Julio and Mike Evans both on the same side with a Chris Godwin in the slot. and you put Russell Gage on the other side. Maybe you go one tight end, 4 receiver set. Maybe you go empty backfield. I don't know. Byron Leftwich is going to have that luxury of being able to decide. But you got Mike Evans and Julio Jones running a couple of crossing patterns, and with their size and wingspan of those two cats, and the defense tries to cheat over, maybe they play quarters and bring 3 corners over or a free safety over the top and bury the lead. Then you got Russell Gage or Chris Godwin going through the slot and down the field. We've been saying it. This is what the NFL seems to be going to these days with these big receiver packages and these heavy receiving teams. But I'm not saying that Julio Jones comes in and, he's going to be 1,000-yard receiver, or I'm not saying Pro Bowl. I'm not going to say he can't because of the kind of the athleticism this kid has had. And I think for all as much as he had that time last year that he spent a little injured with the Tennessee Titans, it's given his body a little bit extra time. And we comes in here and he's going to be out there with Tom. They're going to be working on routes. They're going to be working on their timing. And I think that you might see in a Julio Jones a little bit of what you saw when you brought a Rob Gronkowski in here 2 years ago is, after Rob retires from the league in 2019 because of the real bad back, takes a year off, comes back, ready to get back at it again. And I think that's just going to, obviously, I think it's going to add to the depth. I didn't want it to happen. I shouldn't say want it. I wasn't as feeling to need him to sign a Julio Jones. But knowing the type of receiver he is, you don't make the Pro Bowl 7 of 10 of your years in the league without having that talent. I do believe that he's going to make great contributions to this Buccaneers offense in 2022. Bring into the show, Mr. Meeseedor. Hey, Me, how are you tonight, my friend?
Sorry about that. I hit the button too quick.
No, you're good. We brought you, as long as you wasn't like doing one of these. Me, first thing you said, and you and Johnny were talking about it, and you're not poo-pooing on Julio because of the kind of character and the player this guy is, but you said you're not the biggest fan of the signing. Share with us the reason why, because I think we're all kind of agreeing on some of these reasons.
All right. Well, it's the impact that Julio Jones will have on the Bucs this year it's going to be somewhat. I mean, he's going to make some impact. It's not going to be anything great. You're not going to see Julio Jones that made the Pro Bowl. He's coming in as a number 3, number 4 receiver, especially with Godwin being healthy. Now you're going to limit his snaps. You're not going to take snaps away from Chris Godwin. You're not going to take snaps away from Mike Evans.
Right.
You just signed Russell Gage. I can tell you right now, I think Gage will have a bigger impact than Julio Jones. My issue is the fact that you're bringing a 35-year-old receiver. How many impact plays did he have last year for the Tennessee Titans?
1.
Wow.
According to NFL.com,
right.
Cyril Grayson had more impact last year than Julio Jones. According to NFL.com, Rashard Perriman had more impact than Julio Jones. And those are two guys that you bring Julio Jones in now, you might be saying goodbye to first-round draft pick Rashard Perriman. You might be saying goodbye to track phenom Cyril Grayson. I mean, that's a true possibility. And now you're making your team better. I mean, how much does Julio Jones actually tilt the field? I mean, does he still have that impact? Is he still that guy? And I don't see it.
And the thing is also, but I get what you're saying there. We're talking about Julio Jones. Atlanta's going through a bit of a rebuild. The Titans bring him in as a free agent. The injuries that he sustains early on, but then the injuries to Derrick Henry. And here was the thing at the end of the day. I'm still not trying to put down the $125 million contract that Ryan Tannehill got, but Tannehill is a play-action type of a quarterback. And the moment that Derrick Henry got injured last season, as we had a Julio Jones, I think it kind of limited what he was able to do. So I agree with the numbers that you're presenting here, but I would pose that any receivers on a team that's quarterbacked by Tom Brady are going to have a little bit better numbers than a receiving team that's on a team like a Ryan Tannehill team minus Derrick Henry.
I mean, you're speaking different philosophies there for one, but yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, you're going from a running team to a team that in the past was pass happy, but you got to remember the Bucs are entering a new identity this year. It's not going to be the sling the ball down the field,
right?
3 to 5 times a quarter. You're not going to see that as much, I don't think. I also don't think Julio Jones has that potential anymore. I mean, he played 10 games last year. 10. That's not. I mean, he's a veteran player. That's not bad. Those aren't bad numbers to look at. Mike Evans gets hurt every year. I mean, we're used to seeing star receivers get injured. But when you play 10 games, you have 31 receptions for 434 yards. I mean,
And you're the
Yeah,
major,
no, his
you're the major wide receiver on that team too. So
right? He was a number 2.
yeah,
right behind Brown. But let me ask you this though. So we're talking about a Julio on a team, and hey, maybe let's be honest here. Maybe the kid don't make it out of camp. I mean, just because he signs the contract doesn't mean the Bucs guaranteed him $10 million. And I'm sure that there's some veteran, handshaking where Tom recruits guys to the team, and Jason Light says, "Look, we're going to give you a fair shot." They don't want to bring this guy. I'm sure Julio had to look at this Buccaneers wide receiving roster and realize that I'd probably make the team maybe ahead of a Jalen Darden. Probably got a good shot, maybe over an established Scotty Miller. But
I don't think you're worried about Miller or Darden. I think that their special teams is the only way they're making the team anyway. Okay. But you're looking at people like Cyril Grayson. You're going to be cutting out. You're going to look. You already lost Cody McElroy. I talked to him briefly about him last week. Yeah, he's already gone. They waived him to make cap space for Julio Jones. That's young talent tight end. Is he as good as Julio Jones? Probably not. Is he going to put up the numbers Julio Jones did in the past? Probably not. Does he have potential to put the numbers up Julio Jones does this year? Yes.
Julio Jones, though, correct me if I'm wrong here, minus the injuries and some of those things, I'll be honest with you, I'm not too familiar. And did you hear what I said earlier? I'm sure you already knew this, me, but I love the fact that back in high school, back there in Alabama, Julio's nickname was the Waffle House because he's always open. Yeah. I love that guy. And, as Bucs fans, we saw it for years versus the Falcons. But Julio, he's not afraid to get in there and mix it up and block. I'm not saying he's going to be any kind of an impact blocker like we lose with a Gronkowski retiring or Kyle Rudolph coming in, who Johnny Dean pointed out. Kyle's not the biggest blocker. But Julio also, you bring in a big receiver like Julio, and not only does he add to, put another 6'3", 6'4" type of receiver in his offense, but his blocking also maybe gives the Buccaneers a chance, as you said, to establish that running identity to be more of a control type of an offense.
You're not bringing Julio Jones here to block, Ray.
I know. I'm trying to sell it.
Bringing Julio in just purely on his route running ability, and
exactly. Julio Jones here is a shot at trying to capture Antonio Brown for one season. Yeah. I think that's what we're trying to do here, and unfortunately, I really think, me and Derek Jones got in a little bit of not an argument. We disagree on it. He thinks it's a great signing. I think it's going to hurt us in the future. And yeah, Julio Jones in win now. That's what you do if you're in win now mode. But you do that if it was Julio Jones 2018.
Right.
You're getting Julio Jones 2018. The drop off from 2019 to 2020 is ridiculous. He almost doubled his production in 2019 that he did in 2020. He more than tripled his production in 2019 that he did in 2021. You're not getting that receiver. You're not.
Right. Well, and then let me ask you this then. I mean, is it just some kind of a security blanket with Tom that he just wants to bring in because here's the thing. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I just invited Derek Jones to come in here too. I sent him the link in case he wants to come in here. And it's not that I'm trying to get someone else, but that's what this platform's all about. We want to know, and I want to know what I'm looking for comments out here on the side here, and I see a couple of them. But let me ask you this: Do you like what Julio, because he's been to the Super Bowl? Of course, Tom Brady and those Patriots, they know that the Falcons made it to the Super Bowl. There's 28-3 reasons why they remember that. But you bring in a Julio Jones, and you don't have to give these players incentive. You don't have to give a Chris Godwin or a Mike Evans, or you don't have to give these players incentive. But 20 to 25 of the guys on this 2022 squad, they've already got a championship ring from 2020. But do you like bringing in a Julio Jones, a cat like this, a rah-rah, a team player kind of guy who's been in the league for 10 years, going on 11, and now you're going to give him a shot? Do you like how that narrative continues to add?
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's why Julio's here. Brady wants to get him a ring.
I really think it's the fact that Brady wants to prove that Julio's not done.
Yeah.
And if any quarterback can do it, hey, Tom Brady, give him a shot. But I was wrong. I was wrong when they signed Gronk. I was against it.
I was for that. I was for that signing.
I thought that Gronk his better days were behind him. I was wrong. I wasn't overly excited when they brought Brady in.
Antonio Brown. I mean, when they bring in AB, and I know the kind of talent this kid has, and then me, again, I feel like almost sacrilegious to say this, but here I was 2 years ago saying, I love Chris Godwin, the second round out of Penn State. I think this guy's a phenomenal wide receiver, but I'm like, it's too much of a good thing. How many receivers do we have to get fed? And then they bring in an AB, they bring back a Rashard Perryman, and Tom figures out a way to distribute the ball. But I do like that narrative, and I like what you said, me. I think that a lot of what Tom Brady's done in his 73 years he's been in the league is that he's all about proving people wrong. And you have a Julio Jones that after a year in Tennessee and his numbers are down and he didn't get the big numbers like he did when he got that big free agent and he goes to Tennessee and leaves Atlanta. And Tom's like, no, you bring in a cat like that who the talent maybe isn't as deep as it always once was. Maybe he's not as good as he once was, but maybe he's good once as he ever was. And that could be what helps with
that.
I had to do it, Johnny. Hey, so tell me about camp today. Of course, the rest of the team reports today, and of course, you heard that Chris Godwin and Levante David nowhere near the physically unable to perform list. That's huge for the Buccaneers as well, isn't it?
It is huge, and it means, one, they're ready to start working.
Right.
It also means that the front office isn't trying to protect them. They're not going to, handcuff them or put them on a shelf and save them for later. They're ready to use them now. They're ready to implement the new offense, get them good chemistry. They're getting David ready to set up for the defense. And it's a new attitude with that defense because you've got, Larry Foote and, the name's Richardson, I believe, is
right.
The two joint defensive coordinators. So you've got two different takes on the defense. But it's Todd Bowles' scheme, it's Todd Bowles' defense. But you still are going to have that leadership, and David being there is phenomenal.
Mr. Buck Station says, what's up, guys? Please, guys, girls, comment in here. What are your thoughts on the Buccaneers signing Julio Jones, the Waffle House, because he's always open, signing him to the big contract? But, yeah, talking about the fact that, we've talked about this the other day. Me, you, and Johnny Dean and myself actually had this conversation that we're looking at this team. We're not looking at wholesale changes. We still have Byron Leftwich, the OC, on that side. You still have Tom Brady at quarterback. Let's be honest, he's the actual offensive coordinator. I'm just kidding. But Brazilians will tell you different. But you want to see this team get to where they establish. You don't pay Leonard Fournette $21 million over 3 years to become the highest paid Buccaneer running back in team history if you're not planning on using that cat more to establish that run identity and try to make that clock control. Johnny, you're down.
Did you say Eric Dickerson?
There you go, brother. That was you the other day that made that reference, didn't you?
Have you watched his tape? Have you seen him run? He runs tall. He's a long strider. He's quick. He's got great hands. I think he's going to do well.
He can hit pretty good too in the back in the secondary. When he gets to that second level, he can hit pretty good too.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
No, brother. I was gonna say on ESPN Plus, which, by the way, if you're not locking it down with ESPN Plus, make that $5.99 a month investment. You can watch all the Manning arenas with Tom Brady. But I went back and I'm always looking for new stuff, and I found there's a show called Details, and it's basically where Mike Evans narrated Super Bowl 55. Did either of you guys see this?
No, I did not.
Oh, let me tell you something. I'll try to get it to share with you two and anyone else out there. Comment on the show and we'll see what we can do. But Mike Evans is, and here's the thing, I love it when you do the Eric Dickerson comparison to Leonard Fournette, because you go back to
Rachaad White.
Yeah.
Oh, Rachaad White. No, I'm sorry. No, Rachaad White. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That totally blew
away. Except Rachaad White could catch the ball too.
Right.
Yeah, Eric Dickerson was garbage at catching the ball, man.
Well, but the thing is that I'm going back and watching that Details from 2020, and I'm watching the Kansas City Chiefs, and by the third quarter, their players were scaring off of trying to tackle Leonard Fournette. They were done with trying to tackle that beast. And of course, the narrative this week was that he's coming to camp with a little bit of extra weight. And I think as long as he passes those conditioning drills, but I like the backfield makeup of this Buccaneer squad. I just hope that we're going to go ahead and try to establish more of that identity, which, while the rest of the world's over here watching the new Julio Jones signing and trying to figure out how Brady's going to keep all those wide receivers fed, maybe the plan is to use that running game to attack him right off the bat, get off to a quick start in 2022.
As far as Lenny goes, man, his name is not on the pup list, so don't worry about his weight.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what it is. You have no jeopardy. They're not. They could get injured training camp, but you're not putting yourself behind the eight ball and not letting them start the season. As Alex says here, it's 4 games you have to sit out if you. So.
Let me read it. Alex says the big deal with the pup list is that they're on at the start of the regular season. They have to sit out the first 4 games. Pulling them up, brother. There you go. Me's got that going on. I see you, bro. Pulling them off doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to be fully ready, but you don't want to risk them being out for a month, and that's pretty huge. We're still 5 weeks away from the start of the regular season. But what else about the start of camp today? Is there any other? Since we're already talking about it, we don't have a lot of comments coming in on Julio Jones. what else are you guys looking for? I know we've kind of hashed this out a little bit, but maybe some news you heard today as far as all the players reporting now and getting started tomorrow with phase 1.
I mean, it's different now, right? Because you got a new coach, and the Bucs get that advantage with the new coach. You can start a little earlier than, say, not many teams in the South don't have new coaches, but you understand what I'm saying. You get the opportunity to start your camp early and install your new game plans and your implement your new schemes and things. Luckily for the Bucs, it's not going to change that much. So you still have the veterans. Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm thinking, brother. Did you notice that even though Todd Bowles is, a new head coach, and the new head coaches on teams were allowed to start a week earlier, the Bucs didn't do that. The Bucs are just going into camp like everybody else, and that seems to be another one of the things the Buccaneers are doing. They're not saying, hey, as I'm talking to you guys, I got 3 wild deer down here, a fawn and a doe and actual buck out here eating corn. It's pretty nice up here. But Todd Bowles said, look, you guys, we'll come to camp like everybody else. We'll lock it down. We'll get ready to go. And, of course, tomorrow they start again with phase 1, what is phase 1 again, Johnny? I think it's just like T-shirts and shorts, no helmets. And then, next week they do shells and stuff.
Getting up to speed, man. Getting up to speed on their conditioning.
Right.
So, basically, we already talked about the fact that Scotty Miller and Jalen Darden are competing for a special team spot. You don't think they could carry both of those cats, one being a punt returner in Scotty Miller and the other one being a kickoff returner in Jalen Darden? Don't you think that's... Go ahead.
I think you handicap yourself there, right? You're taking a roster spot of depth that you actually need. I mean, yeah, both can impact the play, impact the game, but you're not going to keep 2 returners that's like keeping 6 tight ends. I
don't think either one of them make it. I think the new kid is the one that's going to be that return guy, dude.
Yeah, you're definitely, that you undrafted free agent, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was but Johnny, again, I can get past the whole maybe we don't go with Ryan Suckup, maybe Borgales gets his true shot and there's going to be a good camp competition there, but that takes a big leap of faith to take an undrafted free agent rookie and install him as your main return / special teams guy, doesn't it?
Yeah, they've seen him in person. They worked him out. So
go ahead, me.
I said it last time. I think Scotty Miller only makes this team if he's playing like, a Billy Bates role, where he's a gunner on the kickoff, he's a gunner on your punt team. You can use him as a return man, but I don't think he'll get the majority of returns.
It's funny because you go back and I try to make the comparison, and it's not just because of the type of receiver he is, but you go back 4 years ago, go back to 2018, 2019. I try to make the comparison in my mind. I'm not trying to do this verbally or out loud to anybody, but I'm trying to make the comparison in my mind between a Scotty Miller and an Adam Humphries. And first of all,
there's no comparison there.
There's
Adam
no comparison.
Humphries is a baller, man.
Right. Well, the thing is that, and so maybe, I don't want to get slip sliding too much here on a Taco Tuesday special edition here, Cup Array on a Tuesday night from the Great Smoky Mountains, talking about Julio Jones and the entire team reporting to camp today. But it's it almost, and I would not do that as a disservice to either Scotty Miller or Adam Humphries, because it almost feels like back when the Buccaneers draft, we draft Gerald McCoy, and right off the bat, we're trying to compare him to a Warren Sapp. That was never going to happen, right? I know they're 2 different positions, but it almost feels like it'd be a disservice to any of the 4 players to try and do that. There wasn't a question there, I know.
I was waiting for it, but...
I got no questions.
So really...
That was a good build-up.
That's all I do is build.
2 return specialists. You're going to look at that cornerback that they drafted in the 5th round. I can't think of his last name off the top of my head. I want him to sign him out of Sam Houston State.
Right.
But he's a good return man. He's good at the ball in his hands in open space.
Yes.
He also can play defense. Scotty Miller can't do that. Jalen Darden has trouble stepping over the 5-yard line without tripping.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I was telling Johnny. Is like last year, every time Jalen Darden touched the ball, before the ball got to him, you felt like there was a chance to see lightning on any given play. But then, like
it just struck him to the ground.
He would trip over something crazy, and be like, "What?"
Zion McCollum. That's
Zion. Yeah, that's it. McCollum.
Yeah, the defensive player that can also do returns. Yeah.
Thanks, Alex Lismore.
And I think he's going to make the team big. I think this year he'll make impact early.
King Cook says Humphries and Miller, 2 totally different wide receivers. I 100% agree, King. And again, I'm just kind of spitballing here on a Tuesday night, but basically, I was trying to say that I was trying to say, because we look at Scotty Miller in 2021, he was kind of a missing guy, right? I mean, he was out there getting his time in there, but it almost seemed like, maybe, I don't know if it was that they were trying too hard to get everyone else fed or what have you, but Scotty Miller felt especially after the big play in the championship game against the Packers the year before in 2021, as far as the receivers go, Scotty Miller felt like the guy that was forgotten.
I don't know if it was that he was forgotten or that he didn't prove himself. I mean, he did well in the playoffs last year, or the Super Bowl run. He did well. He made, 2 big plays? He did well on special teams against Indy last year. He made a couple big plays there. But it's not a big enough impact that you're just like, okay, we've got to keep Scotty. We've got to get Scotty involved.
What it does, though, is give him some value as far as a trade goes, because you can't teach speed, right?
All right.
And there's some sucker out there is going to grab him just because of his speed. Jerry Jones would jump on him.
Yeah, I was thinking Raiders immediately.
Yeah, Raiders. That's how they used to play, man. They used to only go for speed.
Right, and then
the Packers they saw what that kid can do. They saw how he got behind that defense in that championship game. And I'm not saying that the Gutekunst and the Packers haven't done well to reestablish after the loss of Devontae Adams to the Raiders this offseason, but that might be a team that they're trying to get some more weapons for Aaron Rodgers. Maybe that's one of the teams that could be looking at him.
So, who do you have of value in your wide receiver room that you can move and get draft capital, clear up cap space, or anything like that, so you can pick up someone like a Carl Nassib or a Carlos David?
Brother, I see where you're going, me. Now,
I mean,
I've been thinking the same way, dude. I've been thinking about edge.
You've got to do something at that outside edge.
Yep.
You don't have the depth you need. It's not set at all. You've got an unproven wide receiver right now, it looks like, playing defensive outside edge, and oh God, I can't think off the top of my head. His autograph upstairs on a jersey.
Wait, defensive line?
Oh, Shoenka. Joe Tryon.
Shoenka, yeah.
Wide receiver. I mean, he's got the build of a wide receiver. He doesn't look like a kid sitting out there. But
he's a poor man's JPP. That's what I keep trying to say, because he's got that length, right?
You hope he is. You hope he's a poor man's JPP. I mean, you don't have JPP.
Mostly by how many moves he's added to his resume this year.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's the same problem we're going to have with Logan Hall.
Yep.
Logan Hall needs to develop his counter move. He needs to develop that second push. He's got to develop some way to make the offensive line adjust. If he can make them adjust, he's great at keeping his extension. He's great at disengaging from the block, but he's got to get those moves developed. But like I was saying, though, you got to add depth there. And you've got Carlos Dansby and God, why am I having such hard time thinking?
No, because let's be honest with me.
Carl Nassib.
Carl Nassib. I'll tell you what, you talk about, because the Raiders says Carl Nassib feels like he could be the forgotten guy out there in Las Vegas, and you bring him back here. Of course, he played with the Bucs after the Cleveland Browns before he goes out to Oakland.
He's a free agent right now.
But go back to your initial question. Mr. Buck Station says, at Bucs Report, I really think it's our year. We have the roster to win a Super Bowl. And I agree. I mean, we have a roster here, and that's why when I try to work it back to a Julio Jones signing, and why here on the first day of camp, when everybody's just checking into the, who've got their sleeping blankets and their pillows, they're checking into camp, why bringing in a player of Julio's ilk? It doesn't, we can talk about what it does for this team. It's already one of the deepest wide receiving rooms in the entire National Football League. Did you guys see? My son had to bring this to my attention because, again, up here on vacation, everything's out the window as far as I'm still following things, but I try to give myself, because we're getting ready to lock it down here on Bucs Report for the entire season. The Bucs get that overall Madden rating for the team of 97. And it's funny because while everyone's trying to say how the Bucs are this and, Chiefs and the Bills and stuff like that, the Buccaneers get an overall rating of 97, which, and this is before you add a Julio Jones, which, again, I don't think that makes a big, splash as far as the depth of that wide receiving room, but it doesn't hurt it either, does it?
It might. I really. Tell me how Julio Jones tilts the field for us this year. If you can give me sound,
brother,
reasoning,
I can't give you Julio Jones on the field before game 8 because how hard it is for these people to learn our verbiage.
Right, but if that's the case, why not put your money into a younger receiver who, granted, he's made a career out of one catch, and he's hurt right now, but still, he's younger. He's like
Tyler Johnson?
Tyler Johnson's like 9 years younger. I'm talking OBJ.
Oh, okay.
still out there. And
I
yeah,
never liked OBJ.
I don't like him either, but he gets respect around the league. Why? Because he has that one play potential.
Played well with the Rams last year. He damn sure did.
That potential is still there.
Yep.
But he's.
Well, you talked about me. You asked, and I'll just spitball this idea. You asked, as far as wide receivers currently on this roster, who do we have that might be of value that you might be able? And ironically enough,
Grayson and Perryman.
Well, how about a Russell Gage? I mean, I like the Gage, but now that we hear Gage,
what do you mean?
There's no
evaluate him. Russell Gage is the real deal. He's the third. He could be.
Yeah, he's your number 3.
Well, that's what I mean. You talk about a receiver that may fetch value on the market. If the Buccaneers have a logjam at wide receiver, Tyler Johnson, he's not going to bring anything. Scotty Miller, he's got some speed, but they're going to sell him like they do Garoppolo.
So you got like I was telling Derek Jones, you don't worry about losing a Jalen Darden or a Scotty Miller. Because of Julio Jones. They weren't going to be in that spot anyway, but you do worry about Rashard Perriman, Cyril Grayson, and those are 2 players that had big impact in games last year.
Yeah.
Julio Jones hasn't made an impact in a game since 2019.
Wow.
I couldn't see Julio beating any of those 3 out. Perryman or Grayson or those.
You would hope not. I mean, well, let me put it this way: you hope he actually does beat him out.
Yeah.
And they play him, but you don't want him being out there because he's got a name.
You know what's funny though, Johnny? Let me ask you this, because this is how skewed we can be as sports fans, or as because we all, I think between the 3 of us, I'd say we've got it pretty locked down as far as our knowledge of the game of football. We talk about the fact that maybe it takes a Julio Jones so many weeks into the season to learn this offense, right? To get the verbiage and to get the plays down. But yet, at the same time, we're all trying to figure out how Baker Mayfield's going to have 4.5 weeks to get down there in Carolina and become the quarterback for your Panthers team going out there on the field in 2022. So why is it
there's a difference there? You've got a guy who's sitting there who's already heard all the verbiage. He knows all the verbiage, and he still can't perform. Okay, that's why
Darnold.
You're going to go with a Baker Mayfield there.
You're talking about Sam Darnold before the injury, the groin injury, or after?
After and in between.
I'm just kidding, Johnny. I don't think we've had this talk with you. Have you? You said you're pro. You think Baker wins that job? Do you still think it's a true quarterback competition there, a true battle there in the Carolina camp, or no?
It's not a competition.
Wow.
I mean, they can paint it as a competition, just like the Bears painted Mike Tomczak. Jim McMahon was a quarterback competition. But you knew going into that season that Jim McMahon was taking the snap under center. And it's the same thing going on in Carolina right now. You can't say to your team that, hey, we made a mistake paying this guy this much money, then went out and paid and drafted this guy. Oh, and look, there's Baker Mayfield available. We're going to go swing a deal for him. I mean, Baker's got to be your guy. You got to at least give him the option to start. And if he struggles, then you go, okay, let's put Sam Darnold in. But once you put Darnold, you're not going back to Baker.
You see that me throws that Mike Tomczak and the Jim McMahon in there, brother. I knew there's a reason why I love talking with between you and the professor. It's like literally talking to a couple of historians here on the National Football League. So the thing is that we've already kind of said, and I'd like to see some comments here in the comments section. Please, if you're just joining the show, it's a special little Taco Tuesday edition of Cup of Ray. I was going to do it tonight anyway with the team reporting to camp today, but then Julio Jones and then hearing Chris Godwin and Levante are reporting healthy, which is great news. But to answer your initial question a few minutes ago, you said, what can Julio mean to the signing of this team, other than Tom just continuing to prove out to the rest of the world that he can make it work with this team? The guy, he did show me something last year. When he goes to Tennessee, I knew that the Atlanta Falcons were imploding, but then when he had the injury problems and Tennessee had the off year, I saw a player in Julio Jones, hat in hand. He generally had agita. He generally had heartburn about it. He really wanted to help that team out. I just don't know, as we're all saying here tonight, how he's going to help this Buccaneers 2022 squad get to the promised land out there in Arizona.
I'll say this. Derek Jones made a good point when we were discussing, because he asked me who our number 3 was last year. Honestly, who the number 3 for the Bucs last year was Rob Gronkowski, right? Because he was the only solid you had. So then you look at Rob Gronkowski's route tree. Julio Jones can run that route tree. It's a 5-yard pop. It's a 10-yard slant. It's a runnable tree.
Can take those hits because that route tree includes the seam.
Thank you. That was my point. is he's not going to be able to take those hits. So you're back at square one. He's not going to tilt the field for you like he did in the past. He might put up a couple games where he's got 4 or 5 catches for 60 yards. And if you get that, great, because you're getting more than I ever thought you would out of him. But what he does do is he's going to hamper us next season. Because if you lose someone like Surreal Grayson, and say he goes somewhere like, I don't know, L.A., and explodes as their number 3 receiver and puts up great numbers, you're going to be like, we gave up Julio Jones we gave a Surreal Grayson for Julio Jones at 35 years of age.
Right.
And that's the impact.
Well, there's no way this team. The thing was with Cyril Grayson, we're all waiting for this kid. We go back to the ball bouncing off his helmet. We're like, oh, this is crazy. This kid has worked his tail off, and he's shown that improvement. I don't think you can lose a Cyril Grayson. I think that, I think that's what it is.
Can't lose Rashard Perryman either, because he has that number one wide receiver experience. He played for Evans. Remember when Evans and Godwin were out?
Oh, brother, he played. Not only did he played admirably. And in fact, when the Jets signed him as a free agent, I'm like, the kid earned that money. I mean, the player earned that money. And then we get him back here. He catches the overtime against Buffalo, which was solid. So really, that's kind of. So let's put it on 100% here.
You're not keeping 9 receivers.
No, you can't. So let's put it on a scale of 100%. 50% being straight up even, anything over 50% being positive, anything under 50% being negative. Julio Jones signing today. Where does that put you first, me?
For this year, about 54%.
Okay. Yeah, for this year. Man, you make it
great.
For this year. Go ahead, finish that.
But for next year, you're going to lose someone that's younger, probably faster now, because let's be honest, it's hard to run with your oxygen tank and your walker down the field. I mean, he hasn't done anything in 2 years. 2 years. Not done.
I honestly see him as the 6th man, or maybe the 5th tops.
So Johnny, give us your. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Johnny. Give us your on a scale of 100. 50% being straight up down the middle. It's over 50, under 50. Where are you at as far as positive, negative on the whole Julio Jones signing today?
Well, me said 54. I'm not that positive.
Wow. See, me broke it down. Analytics, my friend. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and answer for you, Johnny. You're gonna say 51% because I'm just kidding. Go ahead, JD.
50. That's a
straight up 50-50. What if
and
I told you?
Go ahead, Ray. What's you at? Where are you at on this?
You know what? God bless me. You're putting me on a spot. I'm supposed to be the one putting you guys on the spot. I'm gonna say 55. I'm gonna go 1% over you. And the only reason why I'm being that positive is because every time I've been negative in the past with the whole, we don't need Rashard Perryman. Why are we giving Chris Godwin a franchise? Why are we doing this? And they prove out to me that as long as number 12's under center with your team, and he's the guy that's distributing that biscuit, if you will, or pitching that biscuit, just always seems to work out somehow. But man, I don't like what you say, me, but I totally get that point that as far as one or the butterfly effect, right? Flapping its wings, it causes a hurricane across the world. One or 2 or 3 years down the road, when you're breaking in a Kyle Trask, or you're going in a new direction, you got that veteran, that wide receiver room. Who's not going to be in there then that would have been in there had we not been worrying about Julio on a schedule on the roster this season. So that's a pretty solid point.
King Cook says any team would take Julio over Surreal Grayson. And you're right. Any team would take Julio over Surreal Grayson because they need jersey sales. But we're not here to sell jerseys this year.
If you want performer, you take Cyril Grayson any day.
Right.
I pointed out today that you go back to 2011, Julio Jones is drafted number 6 overall by the Atlanta Falcons. Do you know, go back, I'll tell you what they gave up. They gave Cleveland the number 29, number 56, number 129 in that 2011 draft, and they gave Cleveland their 1st and 4th round pick in the 2012 draft just to move up and take Julio Jones out of Alabama. But the Falcons draft him at number 6 in 2011, and do you guys know who was drafted at number 10 in 2011?
Ugh, I don't.
Blaine Gabbert, who currently wears number 11 on your Buccaneer squad, which ironically enough, I know that Julio wore number 2 last year in Tennessee, but he probably would have locked down number 11. But I don't think Blaine's going to give that number up. Just a little bit of trivia out there. Because sometimes, we go through. I'm looking at they talk about a player like Calvin Johnson. Did you guys see the stat today that a player like Calvin Johnson was went through high school, college, drafted by the Detroit Lions, retired, and is in the Hall of Fame, and all of that happened while Tom Brady has been a professional football quarterback. Which
You
is
bring up Calvin Johnson, I would take him right now over Julio Jones.
Megatron.
with
Yeah,
bad legs and all.
100%. You know why? Because
Go ahead,
you put Megatron in the end zone, 5-yard line, and you let him jump. He can jump for 3 plays a game.
Yep.
I'll put money on that 7 days a week.
where Julio, he's got the size, but he's not as much of a jumper as he is a route runner with the speed, trying to get to a place.
Julio is 1 hit away from retirement.
We're going to keep going back to the walker and the oxygen, ain't we?
No, I don't want to make it a bashing thing for Julio Jones.
I got you.
When he was great, he was fucking great. But
Johnny,
right now, sorry about that.
No, you're good, brother.
He's not that same Julio, people.
He's not.
He just isn't.
1 impact play last season. 1.
Yeah. I don't know.
You're the number 2 receiver.
I know. Fond memories don't make for a great football play outside.
Well, let me ask you guys this, though. And I didn't even think about this today because, again, I got off a hike in the Smoky Mountain National Park and I got the news on Chris Godwin. And before I knew it, everybody's popping me with and that's one of the best things, me and Johnny, I think you guys both agree, doing this thing that we do and having these great conversations with so many, King Cook and Mr. Buck Station and stuff. It's great being part of that network because we're getting news before it even pops on ESPN. We're getting news before it pops on anything else, which is fantastic. But my cousin pops me back with with Julio Jones and the signing of him. And I didn't even, do you guys think, was this Tom Brady leaning on Jason Light, telling him, get me this guy, get him in here? Or do you think Jason Light is looking at this thinking, you can never have too much of a good thing?
Well, if you put Julio on the field and you got those other guys on the field with him, they will have to pay attention to Julio. Right. And that means they're splitting attention between 4 guys or 3 guys. You know what I mean? 13 man, you'd have him on the field as a 4th receiver. So you got that right. I don't know how much value that gives you.
Me, I see you smiling. Why are you smiling like that, me?
Well, you think that Jason Light snuck into a room without Brady knowing? Called Julio Jones' agent was like, listen, in Tampa. That didn't happen. No chance.
Let's give Tom a little surprise. Hey, we're going to surprise Tom. He's going to be 40. He's going to be 102 next month. Let's get him a birthday present early here. A little August birthday present in July.
That didn't happen.
Yeah, everybody was clamoring for Julio. I mean, everybody.
Everything.
When?
Yeah, because they're memories.
Yeah,
they're
last
memories
year.
Of Julio. They're memories of Julio. Yeah, that's what's getting everybody.
We did see him twice a year for a decade.
Exactly. But how old is he? 36?
35. He'll be 36 by midseason, I believe.
Okay, yeah, he's not Tom Brady. He's taking a lot of hits. He's having a hard time staying healthy these days. Even when he was with Atlanta, he was having a hard time staying healthy. So
yeah.
Julio Jones is going to a team with the most injured wide receiver core in the last 6 years. I mean, think about that.
Chris Godwin
alone have had hamstring injuries for the last 6 years. They have not stopped. They have not lessened. They have not slowed down. Is it the trainers? Is it something the Bucs are doing wrong? I'm not sure if you're seeing those problems in other warm climates. Miami doesn't have those issues.
I think it's the Bulls.
I think it's the what?
The Bulls. They tear that field all to hell, man.
Honest God, something's going on. And I'm not being funny. I'm being serious. He's going from a team that didn't have the injury issues, and he still was often injured. Now he's coming to a team that does have the injury issues, playing on a surface, like Johnny said, that gets shared with another team. So you're adding what? A minimum of 5-6 games a year to that field? And it's not it's in a humid environment that's always rain possibility, and Ray is like really messing with my eyes right now.
Sorry, me. Johnny's putting me around, but my every time Ruth runs by here, you'll see my shepherd. She's knocking the camera off. But I 100% agree.
That's an issue.
Here, it always comes back to the 53 in the locker room, right? People always say, well, what do you think what's really going on here? And I always go, well, we can all prognosticate. We can have our inside school sources. We can, talk with different people who are closer and closer to specific players or in that. But really, when it comes down to it, it's about the 53 in that locker room. And I I think you guys will agree. That's the reason why we're either at 50 or a little above 50% as far as the positivity on the signing of Julio Jones. I got to believe that Tom Brady and a specific number of Buccaneers. I'd like to know what, if we could get a truth serum. I'd like to know what a Chris Godwin or a Mike Evans or a Cyril Grayson or even a Rashard Perryman, what they're thinking about this, because I know you want to just think it's all us against the world. Let's go get them, LFG. But at the end of the day, this is something that maybe those guys are looking at, possibly a little bit of food coming off their table.
I don't know if you're Mike Evans or Chris Godwin thinking he's taking plays away from me, but you got to be thinking, if you're on that Bucs defense, what the heck are we doing? That's got to be. I mean, you've got youth. I mean, Shaquille Barrett is a veteran, yeah, but he hasn't got the 7 years experience that you're losing. So you got youth on that outside edge, and you're signing a wide receiver when you have. And Jason Licht's made great moves. I'm not saying I'm smarter than Jason Licht or I'm a football savant in that way, but if I'm on that defense, I'm like, what's going on? When is the paddy wagon coming to help us out?
Which the irony is that we always talked about going back to Tony Dungy when it was the defense versus that offense, which couldn't get out of their own way. And then the thing is, what we've had here with Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles and Byron Leftwich is we seem to have simpatico, right? It was like this and that and that and this, but then as we turn, because you can't just turn the team over to Todd Bowles and say, all right, you're the head coach now, former defensive coordinator, do your thing. But yet we're going to continue signing every available offensive free agent. We're going to continue to let the narrative be that Byron and Tom are going into the One Buck Place or the Advent Health Training Facility at 3 a.m. and they're coming up with all these magical plays to run. They're drawing them up in the sand. But then, like you said, for so many years, we're talking about a Buccaneers, under Tony Dungy, with, ironically enough, Clyde Christensen as the offensive coordinator back then. We had an offense that couldn't get out of their way, and then we got to a point where the defense was just like, you know what? You guys just stay out of our way. We'll score enough to win a game, and we'll stop the other team. But we don't have that yet with this team, and I say yet, but I don't think we're going to get there with this 2022 Buccaneer squad. Do you guys think that?
The game's changed. You can't get there with this team. You're not going to see a team like the 2002 Bucs defense. You're not going to see the 85 Bears defense. You're not going to see the 78 Steel Curtain. You're not going to see that defense that imposes their will on them because the game has changed. The game is offensively slanted. You're not going to have that big impact sack or that big hit over the middle like you saw from John Lynch. You're not. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be there. So now you got to rely on your offense, yes, but you still have to put some of your poker chips behind your defense.
Quite a few of them, actually. You need more defense now that they've got the rules because you're going to need exceptional secondary. You're going to have secondary out the butt, man. For that passing game. And you guys still keep 8 men in the box at times. You know what I mean?
Right. And
we'll have people like King Henry out there,
Look at our conference. That's the only saving grace right now. Or look at our division. That's the only saving grace right now.
Right.
But I'm going to leave you with this thought because I got to go here in a minute.
We're all going to bust out of here, but go ahead, Meat.
If you're on that Bucs defense and you have your offense and you lose Rob Gronkowski, but you have a receiver like Cameron Brate, a good tight end like Cameron Brate, like I've said in the past, he starts on 26, 27 other teams in the league, not as your number 2 tight end, as your number 1 tight end, as your featured offensive weapon there. And then you've got a great receiving core. You have arguably the best receiving core in the National Football League.
Right.
And you go out and you sign Julio Jones. While you're going to your defense and you're looking at a defense last year scrambled when we got injured in the first half of the first game of the year in the second year, and we scrambled the entire season.
Yes.
We picked up Richard Sherman, give him 3 days of practice, and he's playing in a game. That's not something you want to repeat this year. And if I'm on the defense, I'm like, when are we going to learn from our mistakes? When are we going to pick up and get us some defensive help? And until that happens, I don't know what's going to happen.
Wow, me. So that's, I'm glad. First of all, thanks for coming in here tonight, brother. But now I know exactly why your first initial text to me, we were like, you said, hey, I just want to let you know I'm not totally 100. I'm paraphrasing, not 100% on board with this. Not that you have a problem with it, but for reasons unknown. And of course, now you've made those reasons unknown. Great topic, my friend.
Not a fan of it, but anyway.
Go ahead. Tell everyone where they can find you, me.
Every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, you'll find myself with the other members of the crew on the NFC Roundtable. We dive into all things NFC. Try to keep it as light as possible. Sometimes we do hit some serious topics, and you will see some teams arguing with each other, but it's pretty much all in fun. So join us and definitely guide the show.
Good stuff last week. Thank you for joining us, me. Have a great evening, and thanks for coming in here on a Tuesday night.
No problem. Appreciate you guys.
Take care, brother. Hey, Johnny, man, I'll tell you what, I hope I hope I'm not between you and me. I hope I'm not overextending my invitations here because, first of all, it was great to have these conversations here. But, I'm going to go ahead and get you out of here because you guys are pre-taping a show for Thursday night for the NFL edition. I'm not going to have you get into any of that narrative, what you got going on, but something tells me you'll probably at some point be mentioning this Julio Jones signing by the Buccaneers, no?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I don't think it's going to be their big topic on the show.
No, so that's what I love about the NFL edition because you guys are locking it all over the league. Same with me's got going on there. But Johnny, go ahead and remind everyone where they can find Mr. Johnny Dean and Professor.
All right, this Thursday night, same time, 9 o'clock. We will have a pre-recorded show up, which we're about to record right now after I get off of here, and it'll be a very interesting show. It won't be as interactive as we usually are, but it will be a very interesting show. We're going to go over a few things like, we got a little tool that's going to get us through all the division leaders in the playoffs and who's going to win the Super Bowl. How you like that? Don't miss it. It's going to be great. Later, guys.
Johnny, come on. There he is. Anyway, I like the Julio Jones signing. And for topics, no, I'll get to that in a minute, but let me break out with some of these responses some of these comments at the end here. Mr. Buck Station says, Bucks report, do you think Niners could beat us this year? Here's the thing with Trey Lance and Garoppolo, I still like that defense. And of course, what Johnny Lynch is doing with Kyle Shanahan, that offense, but they still don't even have the Deebo Samuel stuff worked out. Now, I think at the end of the day, now that camp is, everyone's reporting, I think all the warm and fuzzies get going. I think you're still going to have a very talented San Francisco 49ers team out there in the NFC West. Could they beat us like they did 3 years ago on opening day there at Raymond James Stadium? I don't think so. Not this Buccaneer squad, but, they're still going to be a pretty good team, and that's going to be a pretty good division, minus the Seattle Seahawks. King Cook says, but what did Searle do outside that Jets game, though? And here's the thing, though. We've just been watching Searle. Excuse me for a second here since it's a Tuesday night. I'm going to go ahead and crack that. Here's the thing with Searle Grayson is that we've just seen with that kid basically with no experience and what we've seen him do and the commitment he's made to playing on this team. And at the end of the day, I find it hard to do a comparison between Searle and, maybe a Scotty Miller or a Brashard Perryman, which here's the thing about Perryman. I know Johnny Dean was talking about him there. Kid comes out of University of Central Florida. He's a first-round pick by Jacksonville. The kid's a lockdown receiver. We've seen what he did. He gets that, performs really well in place of a injured Mike Evans a few years back. The Jets get him on a free agent deal. The Bucs let him go. He comes back in here, and don't forget, even last season when he's back in here, there was a week where the Bucs put him onto the squad and cut him off and brought him back on. It's not because they're underestimating what a Brashard Perryman can mean to this team. I just think that as far as skill sets go, even though this cat was still a first-round receiver coming out of UCF, the Knights, I still think the Buccaneers maybe have other ideas at the wide receiver position. So I like what Johnny says as far as what Brashard Perriman can add to the team as far as depth at the wide receiver position. I just don't think that alone makes him a lock for this team. He definitely feels like one of those players that have on the bubble, and that's only because he was on the bubble with the Jets after they signed him to the free agent deal. He was kind of on the bubble with the Bucs, letting him get away with the Jets. Because remember, before the Jets signed him to that free agent deal, he could have signed back here with this team again, but the Bucs didn't offer him. Of course, we don't know what they did or didn't offer him behind closed doors, just what we know. Christopher Cole says, I believe we keep the 7-8 wide receivers depending on injuries. Again, I think that goes right back to what me was saying as far as depth on this team. Excuse me one second. That's going to be, you want to get that defense, that defensive line. It's a young defensive line. You don't just replace Ndamukong Suh and JPP with a Logan Hall and a second-year Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. You still have Nunez, Roches, and Golston in the middle there with Vita Vea and then Shaq Barrett. There's still so much potential on this defense, but man, it's still young, especially when you're talking about a Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and a Logan Hall. I don't think that the signing of Julio Jones today is any kind of bad will. And I don't think that's what me or Johnny was saying either. I think that this is still a simpatico team, the offense working with the defense. Todd Bowles, we're going to find out more as we go through the next couple of weeks. The players just reported to camp today. They start with phase 1 practice tomorrow, and then we lock it down from there. So stay tuned, Bucs fans, and keep it here on Bucs Report. Christopher Cole says, on a different topic, how about Rodgers' interest today? I mean, you know what? Every time, because Tom Brady should have won the MVP of 2021. I'm just kidding. Aaron won it with the numbers. But every time I want to poo-poo on that kid, Aaron Rodgers, that cat, I say kid like I'm 103 years old myself. He just comes out and balls. He's still the top-rated quarterback. It's Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. Is it Josh Allen now? I don't know why Joe Burrow. If you guys haven't checked out on The Athletic, they had a really great, it's a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and breaking down all the quarterbacks. And I didn't really get too far into tier 3. I'm more near the bottom of tier 3. Haven't seen Jameis yet, but a really great breakdown of careers up till now, the strengths and weaknesses of each quarterback. That being said, Aaron Rodgers, every time I want to count him out, and of course, what Gutenkirsten just gets a extension with Matt LaFleur this week. Every time I want to count a goal against Aaron Rodgers, he seems to ball out. So, man, I tell you what, he did show up at camp, though, didn't he, Christopher? Mr. Buck Station says, Bucks are winning the Super Bowl, end of the story. The only team that we have to watch is the Niners. As far as the NFC goes, I'm probably going to say Niners. You want to say it's Dallas? Man, that week 1 matchup, the Bucks go out to Dallas on that Sunday night game. That's going to be huge because we talked about the NFC East with the Eagles and, Ron Rivera and the Washington Commanders. But Dallas, that week 1 Dallas matchup is going to be a lot. And Bucs fans, I think we lock it down. I think we go out there and we win, even against that Quinn defense, even against that Mike McCarthy offense and, an even healthier Dak Prescott and whatever they're doing with that running game. But, remember that's starting off. I know last year we opened up a Thursday night game as the defending world champions, Super Bowl 55 champions. We had the Dallas Cowboys here on a Thursday night here, not here in Carolina, but back in Tampa. But man, that road game, that Sunday night, the NFL schedule makers know what they were doing when they made that schedule. Cause that's going to be, is it just as Buccaneer fans that you're looking at it going, of all the games that happened in week 1, who are the defending world champion? Who are they playing? Who are the Bengals playing? That Sunday night game, Bucs at Dallas, is huge. Christopher Cole says, if Rice played in this era, he would be even better than he already is. Jerry Rice just had the best hands. And remember, back when he was playing, now you go back and you talk about a Fred Biletnikoff, former Raider, former Gator, some of the great hands receivers you had, like a Lynn Swan, and just trying to think of some of the great receivers you had. But I'll tell you what, Jerry Rice, son of a bricklayer, and the way he worked out his hands, the way he stayed his fitness, that West Coast offense was completely situated or completely perfect for him. Yeah, Jerry Rice today, it depends on who's pitching the biscuits, right? If it's Baker Mayfield, the cat's probably non-existent. But if it's Tom Brady, he's got an MVP Hall of Fame career. Misador says, if Trey Lance starts, the Bucs beat San Francisco 100%, right? And then even if it's Garoppolo, I think with Mostert now in Miami, depending on what they're going to do, and then Deebo Samuel, I know everyone's like, well, he's still going to report. He didn't get that big contract, but I'll tell you what, we talked about this, me and John Adine. Again, thanks for coming in here tonight on a Tuesday night, Taco Tuesday edition of Cup of Ray. But one of the ugly sides of this is we don't want to talk about legalized gambling, and MGM lays the odds out for Super Bowl MVP or for, league MVP and all this year. Great story today that ran on The Athletic also. But, Deebo Samuel didn't get the love that he thought he was going to get. And he's doing a report in. Shows up at the facility, but not practicing until he gets a new Super Bowl. Now, that's actually with the Bears and Roquan Smith. But, as far as even if Garoppolo were the one starting quarterback for the 49ers, I don't think it's like 3 years ago, that opening game there. I was at that game at Raymond James Stadium. It was the hottest, muggiest September, or was it the last day of August? I think it was September. That home game, that opening game against the Niners, the Bucs lose that game. That one hurt because that was 2019, because that was Jameis's last season as the Buccaneers quarterback. Mr. Buck Station says our GM is one of the best in the NFL without a doubt, 100%. He comes from the scouting side, going back to when he first started scouting with the Dolphins 100 years ago. He was in the room when Tom Brady, and I use that as a reference, but he was with the Patriots organization when Tom Brady's drafted in the 6th round, 199th overall out of Michigan. So, yeah, you're talking about one of the best, if not the best, general manager in all the National Football League. And Here's the reason why I say that. Family man, great guy, kind of guy that'll sit and have a beer with you, talking about football. Yeah, every now and then him and I get together. We have a great time. Misador says Grayson has take the top off speed for defense. And that's the thing, right? Because he had to work on the catching and the route running and learning the intricacies of playing wide receiver at the professional level. But speed, that kid, he's got more speed than so. Yeah, it's one of those things you don't want to lose. And me was talking about that. It's not so much that the signing of a Julio Jones today is bad news. Anything with the Buccaneers reporting to camp is great. Well, that's almost empty. But the thing about it is that is the seventh receiver in the room who drops off? Scotty Miller or Brashard Perryman or Cyril Grayson or Jalen Darden, who maybe gets in there because of special teams. But that's kind of what the entire narrative of tonight's show was. Go back and watch it. But it's not so much that the signing of Julio Jones can't be a great thing. The Waffle House, because he's always open. I just love that. 2011, sixth round, number 6 overall pick by the Atlanta Falcons. King Cook says Julio was the pickup we needed. Brady will get the most out of Julio. We all know this 100%. Man, I just realized how spooky I look because it's getting dark. So I'm going to get off here, but I want to finish these comments. Thank you all for commenting tonight. King Book says, at Mr. Buck, we have to put some respect on the Rams name now. McVay has our number, just saying. I'll tell you what, he's got our number, but we're down 27-3. They come back, and if not for Sean Hockley, I'm just kidding. You can't blame it on the officials, but if the Rams are the team, and that's the team, not against the 49ers, but the Rams being the defending champions and the NFC, winner of the NFC National or the NFC Championship last year, if that's the team that we worry about having to have our number, then I'll take that competition 7 days a week and twice on Championship Sunday because I like our odds against that team, especially this 2022 team led by Coach Todd Bowles. Christopher Cole says Dallas always chokes in the playoffs. Yeah, Dallas has been choking a lot sooner than that lately, but 100% Christopher. Mr. Buck Station says we have one of the best gyms in the NFL. I think number 5 best. I think he meant GMs. Maybe he means gyms. The gym over at $1 is pretty solid. Mr. Buck Station says I honestly think after Brady, he goes out and gets another elite quarterback again, because that's how you win. Man, I'm not ready to give up on Kyle Trask yet, but I mean that's the one thing is we can't be sitting here on the first day of camp 2022 praising. We came here to praise Caesar. We came here to bury him, not praise him. We can't be sitting here praising Jason Light, and then a year from now, when he decides if it's going with Kyle Trask, or he goes out and gets thank God it wasn't a Deshaun Watson, and Tom announced he's coming back the same day that the rumors had it that the Buccaneers are one of 4 teams that were in that Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. And the reason why I know that for a fact is, if you guys don't already know this, you probably do. I was on the air. Alex Schoenberg and I were live on the air when that news broke that Tom Brady on his Instagram announces he's coming back. It was one of the best, funnest things for me so far of 2022. Of course, winning 57 out there in Arizona will be the number one thing in about 8 months. Mr. Buckstation says, I trust Jason. And Jason Light, we trust 100%. Mr. Buckstation finishes it off with Rams won't repeat. We are winning this year. Book it. 100% agree. Hey, guys, girls, thanks for coming in here. Again, first day of camp, the players are in. They brought all their pillows, their comforters. They brought all their DVDs. I don't even know if players even carry DVDs anymore. They've got all their accesses to all their streaming services. They're all going to be in there building that camaraderie. And as we get further, a little bit, 2 years now away from 2020, where we're not locked down, we're getting to that safer, continue to get to that safer place, and families in town, and everybody's kind of, this Buccaneers team is still going to keep their nose to the grindstone. They're still going to continue. And that's what you get when you add a veteran like Julio Jones to the team today. They're going to continue working toward that common goal, which is a victory and the 3rd overall Lombardi championship in your Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. Hope you guys have a great evening. I know I've done this already twice this week, but you know how I do this every time. Everyone needs to know someone cares tonight. You be the one to let them know. Have a great evening. Buccaneers sign Julio Jones. Big news of the day. And they actually get on the practice field tomorrow at $1 Place. Have a great evening.